There is a world where strength is no longer earned. A world where power is poured from a vial, injected into infants, sold to corporations, and broadcast across glowing billboards above cities that have forgotten what real fear looks like. In this world, the gods wear capes stitched by marketing teams. They smile for cameras. They sign autographs with hands that could crush skulls. And the people below them clap because they have been told that clapping is the same thing as being safe. This is the world of the boys. A world where Vought International decides who lives, who dies, and who gets to be a hero this quarter. A world where Homelander stands above the clowns, gazing down at a kingdom of frightened ants, drunk on the kind of adoration that only artificial divinity can provide. Compound V flows through the veins of every Supe like liquid permission. Permission to be cruel. Permission to be untouchable. Permission to forget that they were ever human at all. And into this world, without warning, without ceremony, without the slightest tear in the sky to announce him, walks a man. He is not glowing. He is not armored. He is not flanked by reporters or escorted by handlers. He wears a simple coat draped across shoulders carved from something older than steel. His footsteps are slow. His breathing is slower. He moves through the streets of a city that worships men who can fly, and not a single soul recognizes the gravity walking among them. His name is Yujiro Hanma, and in his own universe they called him the Ogre, the strongest creature on the planet, a man who arm-wrestled tectonic plates, a man who hunted bears for breakfast, a man whose mere presence could silence armies. He does not know how he arrived here. A flicker of light, a pull beneath his feet, a sky that briefly forgot which colors to wear. And then this, a new world, a new hunting ground. He breathes in the air, and something in him stirs. The scent of fear hangs over this city like perfume. Not the fear of monsters, not the fear of war. The fear of disappointing the cameras. The fear of being canceled. The fear of beings who pretend to be saviors. Yujiro tilts his head, intrigued. He has stepped into a world that calls itself powerful, yet trembles at the wrong tweet. He walks for hours, observing. He watches a Supe land in the middle of an intersection to rescue a kitten while 3 drones film the moment from perfect angles. He watches another Supe sign a child's poster while bodyguards keep the real desperate fans at a careful distance. He watches strength performed, strength packaged, strength for sale. It does not take long for the predators of this world to find him. A trio of low-tier Supes, drunk on imported liquor and louder than the traffic, spot the tall stranger who refuses to step aside on the sidewalk. They circle him the way arrogant boys always circle something they do not understand. One of them shoves a glowing palm into Yujiro's chest. Another laughs. Yujiro does not laugh. He simply moves. What happens next lasts less than 4 seconds. There is a sound like a tree splitting in a storm. There is a body sliding across concrete. There is a second body folded against a parked car in a shape that bodies are not supposed to fold into. The third Supe tries to fly away and finds himself caught by the ankle, pulled back down, and placed on the pavement with the gentleness of a man returning a misbehaving child to his seat. Cameras catch everything. By morning, the footage has reached every screen in the country. Vought issues a statement calling it a hoax, special effects, foreign propaganda. But far above the city, alone in a glass tower, Homelander watches the video for the 11th time. He does not blink. He does not smile. For the first time in years, his chest feels strange, tight. It feels almost like curiosity. By sunrise, the machine awakens. Vought International is not a company. It is an ecosystem. It is a nervous system of lawyers, scientists, publicists, fixers, and quiet men in quiet rooms who decide which truths the world is allowed to remember. And on this particular morning, every single tendril of that machine is pointed at one man, Yujiro Hanma. They begin with the obvious: facial recognition, passport databases, military records from every nation on the map. They expect a hit within minutes. They get nothing. The face does not exist. The fingerprints do not exist. The dental records do not exist. According to every system humanity has ever built to keep track of itself, this man was never born. Then they grow desperate. They pull old footage. They study the way he walks. They time the muscle contractions in his shoulders. They run gait analysis, biometric scanning, hormonal profiling based on visible skin temperature. They calculate his height, his weight, his estimated lung capacity. And every number that comes back tells them the same impossible thing. He is ordinary. He is a man. Just a man. No mutations. No latent compound vive signature. No experimental enhancements. No augmented bone density. No exotic radiation. No genetic markers of any kind that would explain what the cameras keep recording. And the cameras keep recording. In one clip, he stops a speeding armored truck with a single open palm. The vehicle crumples around his hand like wet paper, and the driver inside survives only because Yujiro lifts him out with the care of someone removing a snail from a footpath. In another clip, he climbs the side of a skyscraper in under a minute, fingers digging into concrete as though the building itself were a soft fruit. In another, he turns mid-stride and catches a sniper bullet between two fingers, then drops it onto the ground without breaking pace. Vought's top scientists gather around monitors and whisper. They have spent decades engineering gods. They have rewritten human biology from the inside out. And now they are watching a man do things their gods cannot do. And the readings insist he is no different from the janitor mopping the hallway outside. One scientist suggests a hidden serum. Another suggests advanced cybernetics. A third, an old woman who has been with Vought since the beginning, says nothing for a long time. Then she leans forward and quietly suggests something that no one in the room wants to hear. She suggests that perhaps the man on the screen is simply what a human being is supposed to be. That perhaps somewhere along the way the rest of the species forgot. The room goes silent. Then someone changes the subject. Meanwhile, far from the boardrooms and the laboratories, Yujiro walks through the city without urgency. He eats at small restaurants. He drinks black coffee. He listens to street musicians. And everywhere he goes, he watches the Supes. He watches them pose. He watches them perform. He watches them turn their bodies into advertisements. And slowly a quiet disappointment settles into his chest. These are not warriors. These are not predators. These are pampered animals raised inside a zoo so beautiful they never noticed the bars. Their bones have never known true pressure. Their hearts have never known true panic. Their muscles have never tasted the moment when the soul itself must choose between survival and surrender. They have power. They have spectacle, but they have never been tested. And without testing, strength is only decoration. He thinks of his son. He thinks of the brutal mountains where he learned to be feared. He thinks of all the men and beasts who taught him that pain is the only honest teacher in the universe. And he looks again at the laughing capes on every billboard and he understands. This world has no warriors left, only mascots. And somewhere in a glass tower, Homelander stares out at the skyline with his fists slowly clenching, because he is beginning to suspect the same thing about himself. There is a particular kind of silence that surrounds powerful men when they begin to feel small. It is not the silence of peace. It is the silence of a predator who has finally noticed another predator in his territory. And for the first time since the cameras started loving him, Homelander is drowning in that silence. He has watched every video. He has read every analysis. He has listened to every expert insist that the man in the footage must be a fraud. And yet, when he closes his eyes at night, he does not see a fraud. He sees a stranger walking calmly through his city, untouched by the weight that crushes everyone else. And the worst part, the part Homelander cannot admit out loud, is that this stranger has not even looked up at him. Not once. So Homelander does what wounded gods always do. He decides to remind the world who he is. He finds Yujiro at dusk, standing on the rooftop of an empty parking garage, watching the sun bleed into the skyline. The descent is theatrical. A slow drop from the clouds, cape rippling, boots touching the concrete with the soft thud of a man who expects the earth to recognize his arrival. He lands a few paces away, hands on his hips, smile sharpened into a weapon. Yujiro does not turn around. For several long seconds, the strongest being in this universe stares at the back of a man who has not yet acknowledged him. The wind moves between them. The city hums far below, and something inside Homelander begins to twitch. He speaks first. He has to. The silence is unbearable. He introduces himself the way he always does. Slowly, grandly, with a tone designed to remind the listener that they are speaking to a legend. He talks about his strength. He talks about his accomplishments. He talks about the responsibility of carrying a planet on his shoulders. Yujiro finally turns. And he looks at Homelander the way a lion looks at a house cat wearing a costume. There is no fear in that gaze. There is no awe. There is not even hostility. There is only quiet study. The eyes of a man who has spent his entire life measuring opponents and who has already finished measuring this one. Homelander feels something he has not felt in years. He feels seen, not admired, not feared, just seen. Stripped of the cape, stripped of the smile, stripped of the carefully manufactured myth, Yujiro speaks for the first time. His voice is low, almost gentle. He asks Homelander a single question. He asks him who taught him how to fight. Homelander laughs. He says he was born to fight. He says no one had to teach him. Yujiro nods slowly, as if this confirms something he already suspected. Then he says the words that no one has ever dared to say to the face of the world's most powerful Supe. He tells Homelander that he is not a warrior. He is a child wearing the body of a god. He tells him that real strength is not a gift. It is a wound that learns to walk. He tells him that everything Homelander believes about himself was written for him by men in suits, and that beneath the cape there is no warrior at all. Only a frightened boy desperate for anyone to finally call him enough. The smile slides off Homelander's face. The laser eyes ignite without permission. The beam strikes Yujiro square in the chest, and the rooftop fills with the smell of burning fabric and superheated air. The light is blinding. The roar is deafening. Homelander pours everything into that single moment, every wound, every insult, every quiet humiliation buried beneath decades of forced grin. When the light fades, Yujiro is still standing. His coat is gone. The skin of his chest is reddened, raw, marked, but his stance has not shifted by a single inch. He looks down at the damage. He looks up at Homelander. And then he does something Homelander has never seen anyone do after taking his full power directly to the chest. He smiles, not a forced smile, not a defiant smile, a genuine, slow, almost grateful smile. The smile of a starving man who has finally been handed a real meal after years of plastic fruit. Homelander steps back, just one step, but he steps back, and in that small, involuntary motion the balance of the entire world quietly shifts. Because for the first time in his life, Homelander has met someone who is happy to be hit by him. And that, more than any wound, terrifies him. In a dim basement filled with cigarette smoke, stolen monitors, and the low hum of a dying refrigerator, Billy Butcher watches the rooftop footage for the 9th time. The cigarette in his mouth has gone out twice already. He keeps forgetting to relight it. His eyes are locked on the moment Homelander steps backward. That single step. That tiny, almost invisible fletch. Butcher has spent years of his life dreaming about that step, praying for it, drinking himself into ruin imagining it. And now some stranger he has never heard of has produced it casually, almost as an afterthought, on a rooftop in his own city. Butcher leans back in his chair, and for the first time in a long time, he laughs. It is not a happy laugh. It is the laugh of a man who has just realized that the universe has finally sent him a weapon he did not have to build himself. Within hours, the boys are mobilized. Huey protests. Mother's Milk warns. Frenchie shrugs. Kamiko watches in silence, her eyes already curious about the man who made a god flinch. Butcher does not listen to any of them. He simply says they are going to find Yujiro, and they are going to recruit him, because the enemy of his enemy might finally be big enough to matter. They find him in a quiet noodle shop tucked between 2 laundromats. He is eating slowly, methodically. The owner refuses payment in bahs when he leaves. Butcher slides into the seat across from him without invitation, lights his cigarette, and begins his pitch. He talks fast. He talks colorfully. He talks about Vought. He talks about Homelander. He talks about the children buried in unmarked graves, the journalists silenced, the families ruined, the lies fed daily to a sleeping public. He offers Yujiro information, weapons, intelligence, a war. Yujiro listens without interrupting. When Butcher finishes, there is a long pause. Then Yujiro tells him simply that he does not care. He does not care about Vought. He does not care about politics. He does not care about justice or revenge or the suffering of strangers. He cares only about one thing. He cares about finding opponents worthy of his time. And if hunting Supes brings him closer to that, then their paths may run together for a while. But he will not be commanded. He will not be steered. He is not a weapon to be aimed. Butcher, to his own surprise, finds himself nodding. There is no negotiating with a force of nature. You simply learn to walk in its direction. The arrangement is loose, almost insulting in how informal it is. The boys feed Yujiro information about Supes who deserve to be confronted. Yujiro confronts them in his own time, in his own way, for his own reasons. There are no team meetings. There are no shared goals. There is only a quiet, dangerous parallel current flowing through the city, and the bodies begin to pile. A Supe known for crushing protesters is found unconscious on the steps of a courthouse, his powers intact but his pride permanently broken. A speedster who has spent years untouchable is caught mid-sprint and pinned to a brick wall with 2 fingers. A fire wielder discovers painfully that flames are useless against a man who has walked through worse heat in his own bloodline. Each encounter is brief. Each encounter is filmed. Each encounter spreads across the internet faster than Vought's lawyers can suppress it. And with every clip, something quietly cracks in the public imagination. The capes do not look invincible anymore. They look choreographed. They look fragile. They look like actors who have suddenly been pulled onto a real battlefield, and the audience is beginning to notice the difference. Homelander watches it all from his glass tower, his fists curling and uncurling against the armrests of his chair. Somewhere beneath the rage, beneath the wounded pride, beneath the panic, a new and unfamiliar voice has begun to whisper. A voice he has spent his entire life trying to drown. When the order finally comes down from the highest floor of Vought Tower, it is delivered in a single sentence. Bring him in. Alive if possible, in pieces if not. The 7 are assembled. The reserves are called up. Every elite Supe still loyal to the company is briefed, armed, and pointed at the same man. For the first time in the corporation's history, every weapon in the arsenal is drawn against a single unarmed target. They find him waiting for them in an abandoned shipyard at the edge of the city. He has chosen the location himself. Wide open. No civilians. No cameras of Vought's own. Only the rusting husks of forgotten freighters and the distant cry of seabirds wheeling above the water. He stands in the center of it all, hands in his pockets, the wind tugging gently at his coat. He is smiling before they even land. The first to attack is the strongest. He always is. A blur of red, white, and blue streaks across the sky and slams into the earth where Yujiro had been standing a half-second earlier. The crater is enormous. The dust rises in a slow gray cloud. And from within that cloud, calmly walking out, comes a man who was not in the crater at all. The others descend together. They have planned this. They have rehearsed this. They attack in coordinated waves, each Supe playing to their strengths, their abilities layered to compensate for one another. Speed, fire, telekinesis, sonic force, brute weight. It is, in its own way, beautiful. The pinnacle of manufactured warfare. It does not work. Yujiro does not block their attacks. He simply is not where the attacks land. He moves the way water moves around stones. He moves the way wind moves around buildings. He has spent a lifetime studying the geometry of violence, and these Supes, for all their power, have only ever studied the geometry of victory. They have never had to learn how to lose, and so they have never had to learn how to truly fight. He breaks them one at a time, not cruelly, not with rage, with the patient precision of a teacher correcting a student. A speedster who has never been touched feels a single open palm catch him by the throat in mid-sprint, and sit him down on the dock with the gentleness of someone lowering a sleeping child. A fire wielder who has burned cities watches his flames part around Yujiro's shoulders, as though the air itself refuses to carry them forward. A telekinetic who has crushed buildings finds her own power turning back on her the moment Yujiro takes a single step closer, because he has read her posture the way other men read sentences. And the entire time he is talking, not boasting, not threatening. Teaching. He tells them almost kindly where their stances are wrong. He tells them which muscles they are wasting. He tells them which fears they are hiding behind their abilities. He tells them again and again that power without discipline is only noise, and that noise has never frightened anyone who has truly listened to silence. By the time the dust settles, the 7 lie scattered across the shipyard like discarded action figures. None of them are dead. None of them are even badly injured. But none of them will ever stand the same way again. Something in their spines has been rewritten. Something in their certainty has been quietly killed. The footage, despite Vought's best efforts, escapes within the hour. By nightfall, it has been seen by half the planet. By morning, the conversation has shifted in a way that cannot be reversed. People are no longer asking whether the Supes are good. They are asking whether the Supes were ever real, whether the strength they were sold was anything more than a costume stretched over insecurity, whether the gods on the billboards were ever gods at all. In a basement across the city, Butcher watches the same footage with an unlit cigarette in his hand. Huey stands behind him, pale. Mother's milk does not speak, because for the first time, Butcher is not smiling at the sight of Homelander being humiliated by proxy. For the first time, Butcher is looking at the man dismantling the Supes and quietly wondering whether they have simply traded one nightmare for a stranger and far older one. There is no press conference. There is no warning. There is no carefully crafted statement from Vought's communications team. Homelander simply rises into the sky one evening, alone, and broadcasts a single sentence on every channel, every screen, every device the company still controls. He gives the location. He gives the time. He invites the man who broke his world to come and finish what he started. Yujiro arrives early. The location is a stretch of desert far from any city, chosen by Homelander because there is nothing here to break except the two of them. The sky is the color of old bruises. The wind carries grit across the cracked earth. Yujiro stands in the center of it all, coat off, arms loose at his sides, breathing slowly. He has waited his entire life for fights like this. He is in no hurry to begin. Homelander descends from the clouds like a meteor. The first impact tears a trench across the desert floor. The shockwave flattens distant dunes. The sound reaches cities hundreds of miles away as a low, confused rumble that weather services will later struggle to explain. And in the heart of the storm, two figures move faster than any camera can follow. Homelander fights the way he has always fought, with overwhelming force, with absolute confidence, with the casual cruelty of a being who has never had to consider the possibility of defeat. He throws everything he has. Heat vision and beams so bright they leave permanent scars across the sky. Punches that crack the air. Screams that shatter the bones of every animal within 10 miles. He is, for these long, terrible minutes, the god the world believed in. And Yujiro adapts. That is the word for it. Not blocks, not dodges, not counters. With each exchange, his stance shifts. With each impact absorbed, his breathing slows. With each attempt by Homelander to overwhelm him, Yujiro grows quieter, calmer, more present, as though the violence itself is feeding him a meal he has been starving for since the moment he arrived in this universe. He is not winning. Not yet. He is studying. He is composing. He is finishing the portrait of his opponent stroke by stroke, and he is smiling. That is what undoes Homelander. Not the bruises. Not the blood. Not the moments when his attacks fail to land. It is the smile. It is the unmistakable, undeniable joy on the face of the man across from him. Because Homelander has spent his entire life surrounded by people who pretended to enjoy him out of fear. And he has always known the difference. He knows the smile of a flatterer. He knows the smile of a hostage. He has never seen until this moment the smile of a man who is genuinely, deeply, helplessly grateful to be fighting him. And it terrifies him in a way nothing ever has. His attacks grow wild. His form falls apart. The grace he has always carried into battle is replaced by something uglier. Something panicked. He is no longer fighting Yujiro. He is fighting the realization that he was never the strongest. He is fighting the small, screaming child he buried beneath the cape decades ago. He is fighting the slow understanding that the man across from him is not afraid, has never been afraid, will never be afraid, and that the love of the world he chased for so long was never the prize he thought it was. Yujiro lets him exhaust himself. He does not finish the fight with a single dramatic blow. He simply waits. He waits until Homelander is on his knees in the dust, shoulders heaving, eyes wide, breath ragged. He waits until the god understands. And then he kneels down in front of him, places a single calloused hand on his shoulder, and tells him, almost gently, that this was the first honest conversation Homelander has ever had. And somewhere inside the broken god, something that was never allowed to grow finally, quietly, dies. By dawn, the desert is empty. Homelander is gone, not dead, not captured. simply gone. He has flown somewhere no satellite can find, somewhere even Vaught's deepest assets cannot reach. Some say he was last seen drifting over the ocean at low altitude, cape dragging in the waves. Some say he was seen sitting on a mountain peak with his face in his hands. The truth is that it no longer matters where his body went. The myth of him is what mattered, and the myth is finished. Yujiro does not stay to celebrate. He never does. He walks out of the desert the same way he walked into the city all those weeks ago. Coat over his shoulder, hands in his pockets, eyes on the horizon. He does not give interviews. He does not pose for cameras. He does not claim a single trophy from the men and women he has humbled. He simply leaves, as though none of it ever truly impressed him, because none of it ever truly did. The world he leaves behind is not a better world. It is only an honest one. Vought collapses within weeks. Without Homelander as its sun, the entire solar system of lies that orbited him falls into the dark. Boardrooms empty. Stock prices vanish. Scientists flee with hard drives full of secrets that governments will spend the next decade trying to bury. The remaining Supes scatter. Some go into hiding. Some try, awkwardly, to become ordinary people. Some find that without an audience, their powers feel less like gifts and more like weights they were never asked to carry. The boys win, technically. Butcher gets the victory he has spent years chasing. And yet, in the small hours of the morning, when the cameras are off and the whiskey is poured, he sits alone and stares at the wall and does not feel the way he thought he would feel. Because the man who broke his enemy did not break him for justice, did not break him for love, did not break him for any of the reasons Butcher would have chosen. He broke him simply because he wanted to test himself. And that, Butcher slowly realizes, is a far more frightening kind of power than anything Vought ever manufactured. Governments scramble. New regulations are drafted. Old laws are rewritten. The world that depended on superheroes for its sense of order discovers, painfully, that the order was always borrowed, and that the loan has been called in. But beneath all the chaos, beneath all the panic, beneath all the political reshuffling, something deeper has shifted in the human imagination. People who once looked up at the sky for salvation now look at their own hands. They think about what their bodies might be capable of without a vial. They think about what discipline might mean. They think about what it costs to be strong without being given strength. For the first time in a long time, the species remembers that it has a spine. And somewhere, far from cameras, far from headlines, far from the noise of a world relearning itself, Yujiro Hanma walks alone down an empty road. He does not know where he is going. He does not need to. There will be another opponent somewhere. There always is. The universe is large and worthy fights are rare, and a man like him has all the time in the world to find them. He pauses for a moment on a hill overlooking a sleeping town. He breathes in. He breathes out. The wind lifts the edge of his coat, and the world, watching the empty space he has left behind, finally understands. The strongest being it ever met was never a superhero. He was simply a man.